Hi, I'm Steve Podmore. I'm the founder of Transform Global. And in this presentation, I'm going to talk about the media and technology properties that are core for our model to create a new world bank, but better. And I'm also going to explain a little bit more about the real problem that early stage social entrepreneurs of all kinds have, but also the problem that investors have on the other side, and funders of all kinds, not just commercial investors, but many forms of capital providers, and how Big Crowd and fundingtheglobalgoals.tv help solve that problem, but also how that factors in for the broader model to create a new world bank, but better. So Transform Global Media. We've talked about this briefly in other presentations, and there's other presentations that talk about the fund, the bank itself, the funding strategy, the investment opportunity, etc. But this presentation is really focusing in on what is our media and communications agency and its two wholly owned subsidiaries. One is Big Crowd, which I spent 4 years developing the core idea for and really underpinning with a great deal of research and an awful lot of work to understand the need and a model that could address that need. And then also the model for fundingtheglobalgoals.tv. And they go hand in hand, although they are subtly different. So I'll explain both of these models and how they fit in to the vision for the bank. But first, we'll talk about Big Crowd itself, and we'll talk about the SDGs. Well, obviously a big problem that capital, those who seek capital have, is really there are high impact funding gaps, barriers and bottlenecks. We need system innovators. We need solution providers on every level. They don't all have to be startups. They can be scale-ups as well, and they need appropriate capital just as much as the startups, and they often struggle to get it. But also we need appropriate not-for-profits and campaigns and policy initiatives that are also properly funded. And without that, unfortunately, we're struggling. We're missing so many opportunities. It's unbelievable. We're playing a game of cherry picking or trying to pick winners or pick big trees, and often funds or structures or enterprises, social enterprises that are really not ideal come to fruition because they can raise capital. And the ones that are well designed, that are intelligent and could scale with the appropriate capital, they struggle. So these funding gaps and barriers and bottlenecks, they're called, it's called the Valley of Death. It's called capacity building. It's called capital formation. It's called access to capital. I prefer to talk about it as intelligent access to capital. These are the basic definitions of the problem. But I think the problem is that many in policy and investment really are not looking at it from a holistic perspective. They don't really understand the importance of tackling this and doing it in a systemic way. We can't cherry pick any longer. And while there are efforts, there are incubators, there are social incubators, again, many of them are not objective and fair and not really designed to find fairly, intelligently, objectively game changers to support them and to then identify which are the ones that would really scale to deliver maximum impact. So tackling these high impact funding gaps and barriers and bottlenecks, it's critical to tackling all of those sustainable development goals. And we also have to recognize that this isn't about silo thinking. We can't just say we're going to tackle life below water, for example, without the recognizing we can do that and also tackle climate or also tackle hunger or poverty. At the same time, we can't tackle energy without also tackling agriculture and water, for example, and smart industry, sustainable cities and communities. So the reality is these SDGs, they're integrated, and therefore we need integrated solutions. We can't just pick a small number of them and say this is what we're going after. And yet that's how much of the investment world operates. It says we invest in water or what have you. And the cross section, how these things integrate, is really important. So just dig into the problem a little more. It's a two-sided problem. So those who need capital, the funding and support in the best way, they struggle. There's many of them, of all shapes and sizes, and of course types, scale-up startups. Geographically, they might be different, but the basic problem is very, very similar. And then on the other side, those capital providers, they can be for-profit investors, impact investors, donors. They need appropriate deal flow. They need projects that are investable and meet their risk profile and potentially the value add that they can provide. And yet there's a cost to that. And very few can do it thoroughly and objectively. So very often it's a bias that is coming in. And unfortunately, they don't meet in the middle. There is these gaps and barriers and bottlenecks, as we've explained, and they're written down there. I won't explain, but pause the video if you want to read what is my assessment of what many of those gaps and barriers and bottlenecks are. Anyway, at the heart of a solution for the whole bank is something called Big Crowd, and Big Crowd is all about making a mechanism using incentive competitions and prizes to connect these two parties intelligently, but importantly, using literally the big crowd. So that is the people all over the world, collaborators and aligned parties and potentially mini donors and incentivized donors with the game changers, ultimately to enable the capital providers to come in. And part of the model for Big Crowd is it's really a sales and marketing engine. It's designed to use the best of social media and word of mouth marketing, incentivize word of mouth marketing. And on the other side, it's designed to have a content platform where we work with potential big impact game changers, help improve how they present, how they showcase, and we will be essentially giving them a microsite on the Big Crowd website that they can interact with the crowd, interact with their potential donors or investors or many other supporters, and showcase themselves in the best light, but in a way that's fair and essentially due diligence by the collective capability of the crowd. But how do we fund them? Where does the funds come in? Well, our model is there's a free or a premium subscription. Free, meaning free, and the game changers or the Big Crowd subscribers can subscribe for free anywhere in the world. But if they pay £9.60, a modest subscription, they can also earn on the platform little micro awards and payments for how they collaborate and how they share with their social media to promote game-changing projects that they care about. But what's really exciting is even the free subscribers also have the opportunity to earn a paying subscription and then earn cash payments on the platform too. However, we have the ability to add with government grants and NGO or donor funding, and also corporate sponsorship. And the goal basically is to take pooled money, so half of all the net subscriptions will go into the pool, and that will enable us to pay for incredible and really highly valuable prizes for incentive competitions and also direct awards. So what does that mean? Well, very simply, on this platform, the game changers, they get to pitch their projects, and there's a verification process. So it's not any project that will be able to be uploaded to the platform. There is a several step process that makes sure that we have projects and ventures and ideas that are well thought out, that have great people behind them. Of course, we don't want to put too many barriers in the way. So the goal is to make sure fairly and objectively the best can be on the platform and have a chance at being due diligenced and supported and potentially funded by the crowd in a way that's truly exciting. There's no equity involved here. It is literally aggregated donor funding, but it's incentivized aggregated donor funding, which we'll explain. And then the subscribers, as well as experts and judges, they help decide through how they collaborate and how the Game Changers interface with the platform. They decide who wins the very powerful awards of £3.6 million for every award or prize that we give. That's a lot of money, but it's not given in one go. The prizes and awards, every one that we give, it's £100,000 per month of cash and support and governance for 3 years. So they get £20,000 per month of cash. 10,000 is spent on governance and impact reporting, and £70,000 that is spent on an incredible mix of incubation and acceleration and advisory support. And as you can see here, it's talent and recruitment and PR and the storytelling and presentations and funding and introductions, because part of what we want to do is make sure these big impact game changers or potential big impact game changers are fully and optimally funded. Social media support, there's technical development and strategy support, but also there'll be a lot of events, virtual and live. Offices, potentially we'll be providing office space for them initially in their initial stages, as well as accounting and legal support. So the whole point is that structure means every time we have 25,000 paying subscribers on the platform, or donor money or government support to make up for it, we're able to provide one award. Now, essentially what we're doing is we're matching the big impact game changers with the subscribers into this purpose-driven ecosystem that has around it governments and NGOs, and then the industry experts and investors and judges. Academia can play a part, as well as existing incentive competitions such as the X Prize or the MacArthur Foundation's 100 and Change. The goal is not to do everything ourselves, but often to support existing incentive competitions that might be a small amount of money, meaningful and perhaps a spotlight. But what the game changers really want is reasonable money and organized help and support so they can be optimally funded. So we think that the key is this is not just a 1 month thing or a short award. This is a 3-year period to provide all the help and support that they need. Now, this platform, as I said earlier, there's been a number of years of development, and this is really into the mechanism for the subscribers to work and earn, the mechanism for the game changers to interact and to win the awards or prizes fairly and objectively, and the whole method of interaction. So you can see a couple of screenshots from the initial development. This is not live; these are just literally mock-ups. But this has been designed in a detail that means it can go to market pretty quickly. But we've got to do the technical design or the technical build, and that is why we have held off for the right investment, which is now part of the bank. So we decided. We go back in the development of Transform Global and Big Crowd and funding the globalgoals.tv. These were really developed as separate entities. And then what I realized just before the pandemic is the best way to get them out of the gate is to do so collectively in the structure that we see today. So this is, again, just explaining. You can see very small. You can stop the video and take a screenshot and blow it up if you want to see the detail. But this is how the web interface may work. Of course, it's got to be a lot streamlined and a lot more tight and functional. But it's really a really exciting platform that means that game changers can get the help and support they need and the money. And it's all to make sure that they can be taken from where they are, which is often below, to above this line of super credibility. Now, 3.6 million prize for something that might be wanting to tackle poverty is a drop in the ocean. But our job is to get them fully funded and best positioned for success. And therefore the bank, or indeed the fund, would be able to help them raise capital or directly invest. And therefore, even if they're a donor funded type entity, they're a not-for-profit, Our job is really to find the right donors and charge a fee for doing so. If it's a for-profit investment, our fund could get involved, or indeed the bank could if it's appropriate. But the goal basically is to really make sure that the best, most systemic entities have the right spotlight. Now, the growth of the subscriber base is really critical for this business to work. And this is where an awful lot of work has been done on this combined offering, where we have what we call the social network marketing. So how individuals use their social networks to help market both the subscriber offering, but also the game changers that they want to support. Cause marketing is where we're supporting a particular cause, and it could be addressing Alzheimer's or COVID solutions or poverty. Challenge is a particular competition or a challenge that we might launch. So it could be the plastics challenge, or indeed when a game changer, a big impact game changer, wins an award, part of that £70,000 in help and support, it's going to go to promote them. And by promoting them, we're also promoting the Big Crowd subscription as a whole. So there is a separate presentation that explains how the marketing aspect of the business works and how all of these things come together. It's really exciting, and it gives an additional insight for people who understand how viral businesses can grow, and particularly how this concept of monetizing a social network, an incentivized social network, has the power to really be the Trojan horse for everything that we're doing, but also to find and fund and support game-changing projects wherever they are with the support of the Big Crowd. So I do really encourage you to take a look at that separate presentation. You'll see it linked in the about information at the end of the video, or that you can look at right now. But without further ado, I'll just talk about the numbers for Big Crowd. Well, Big Crowd really is designed with that social marketing component and that commercial marketing component to generate over 30 million subscribers over a 7-year period. Now, 30 million is a lot of subscribers for sure, but what's really exciting is this is doing so as part of a bank that is properly capitalized, alongside a media platform, a multi-format media platform called fundingtheglobalgoals.tv that we'll cover in a moment. And it's designed to do so in a way that immediately and quickly incentivizes people for their participation. It also enables them to compete, on how much good they do and how much money they raise for really important causes, and to follow the stories, very similar to following social media or box sets or addictive content. The difference is the addictive content is going to be giving them the ability to follow and support people who are doing things that tackle the issues that they care about, and giving the ability to directly collaborate with them. And although the detail of collaboration can be quite technical, at a very basic level, the subscribers have to do 3 things. They have to watch some content, they have to vote on it, and they have to share. And if they do that, they can earn on this platform. And therefore, this incentive structure is very, very powerful. So if you want to learn more, take a look at it. But if those assumptions are correct and we can generate the revenue we believe we can, that's just short of 5 billion over a 6-7 year period. Now, half of that is going to go directly to the game changers or indirectly to them. So they get £480 million directly as cash, with that £20,000 a month for 3 years, which in and of itself is amazing. But we're also providing £10,000 a month of governance. That adds up to £240 million over that 7-year period. But close on 1.7 billion is spent with that ecosystem of partners. That's to help them with talent or recruitment or social media or awareness. Now, of course, we've got our own platform to help that, fundingtheglobalgoals.tv. But the key is we're also working, although there will be teams that we fund internally to help coordinate and manage this resource allocation, a big portion of those budgets will be spent externally with best-in-class suppliers. And this is really great for that ecosystem, because if you're one of those suppliers, you get to work. We get to pay you to work with game-changing projects. You don't have to do it pro bono. We might ask for a discount. But the point is, by working with them and proving your worth, you potentially get to win contracts with them when they emerge from the platform, or where their needs increase, and they can pay for them with either capital they've raised or we've raised for them, or indeed with their revenues that might come from a variety of sources. So it's an incredible proposition for that ecosystem. And when you do that and you really add the marketing that enables, this further enables the subscriber growth. So it's really a system that's designed to work on so many levels. So the game changers, of course, although there's 4.8 billion that will go, could be raised, half of which that goes directly or indirectly to them, the indirect money that we can raise could be tens of billions or much more. So this is where it becomes really exciting. Now, what does that revenue break down for the other half? The other half of that 4.8 billion, where does it go? So about 600 million is to the subscribers and to the aligned charities. So although there is subscriber commissions, the subscribers are limited on what they can earn. They can earn a fair amount on a monthly basis, but it's not a get-rich-quick scheme. It's designed to cap the personal commissions. We think that's really appropriate for this system, because we want them to be incentivized on how much money they can raise for good causes, or indeed the game changers that are on the platform that they want to support. So in addition, the £1 out of the £8, so the 12.5% of revenue effectively is allocated to those commissions, and those commissions will either go to the subscribers or to aligned charities. So it really becomes powerful. There's a talent budget of around about 540 million, 490 that would be spent on tech, marketing to pump Prime, because not only are we relying on the subscribers for the marketing, we're also doing an awful lot of direct marketing ourselves, so we can get best-in-class marketing supporters and suppliers, as well as our internal capability to grow the subscriber numbers and to champion the causes and the game changers that we're there to support. But what's exciting is this model is a for-profit with purpose model. And at the end of a 7-year period, we expect to have made around 360 million. When it's at scale, that's around about 10%. Now, the business doesn't need 30 million subscribers to work. It can work on about 1 million subscribers is the base level. And that would imply 40 awards or prizes. And when we're in that area, if we don't want to invest all of the capital that we're making, we would be able to be in a profit at that point. But the goal really is to change the world, and therefore the ability to reinvest and to enable scale is so important. How do we fund it? Well, initially from the 3 million, we will be putting some money into the initial build of Big Crowd, but we'll be beta launching it, but we'll go proper with the launch. We're using about 5 million from the 50 million in seed round. Then from when the 100 million in A round, that combined raise that we talked about earlier, the 300 million, 100 of A round, and 200 of pre-commitment to the fund, which you can learn about in the funding strategy presentation. 20 million from that will also go to add and onboard incredible game changers. Now, the first 2 game changers on the platform will be Kim from Builder and Carlos from Power, and we will be featuring them very heavily on the platform because what they're doing is so incredible and has the potential to be so incredible for the world. But very quickly, we'll add game-changing projects that have passed muster and meet our criteria. We want to make sure that we're not putting too many barriers in the way, but we want to make sure the quality of the game changers that are on the platform is significant. Now, they don't have to be highly advanced, but they've got to show joined up thinking. intelligence, and real ambition to address the Sustainable Development Goals. So if they do that, they can be on the platform. But initially, we'll be investing quite a lot to make sure the quality is there and the quality of presentation, as well as we will be marketing to those subscribers to get the subscriber revenue coming in. But then when we do the 400 million, which is when the fund is raised and the fund is hardwired to make an investment back into the bank, we're calling that the B round, 100 million of that would go in to further pump prime the marketing capability and the onboarding of Game Changers onto the platform. And by doing that, and we'll be offering, regardless of the number of subscribers we have at that point, we'll be offering a number of prizes that we're paying from our internal resources. And by doing so, and choosing the right subject matter, and I won't talk about that right now, what that gives us the ability to do is to attract the right kind of stakeholders and the right Game Changers and also the right subscribers to prime the pump even further. So you can see about £125 million would be invested in this strategy for Big Crowd. Now, that would be done out of the full, at that point, it would have been about 560 million or so that would be raised for the bank. But of course, the goal is to then go on and raise the other 2.5 or 3.5 billion or so of mezzanine and then IPO funding for the bank. So the whole point is Big Crowd is a core component of the bank, wholly owned with our own resource. And looking at that revenue, looking at that growth trajectory, and looking at that net profitability, very comfortably, this would be a 5 to 10 billion pound business, and potentially a lot sooner than 7 years in, because the growth trajectory is quite easy to predict when it reaches a certain level. So of course, there's a lot of execution that has to be got right. But by doing it as part of the bank, and by doing it as part of the overall capital raise, we can provide some incredible value for the bank itself that contributes on so many levels. So it's really about its impacts that can move the needle on the SDGs. That's central to what it is that we're doing. But as I mentioned, it goes hand in hand with fundingtheglobalgoals.tv. So let me just talk a little bit more about fundingtheglobalgoals.tv. Now, so let's just do a mental reset for a moment. Let's talk about finance. Now, we know that there's an awful lot of silos in the financial world. We've got mainstream media, the Bloombergs and CNBCs of the world, and there's many other channels, small and large, and now a lot of YouTube content. But it's very, very bitty, and it's very, very while Bloomberg's and CNBC, they cover an awful lot of mainstream investment. Often they're not asking the tough questions because their paymasters, their sponsors, are very often those entities that we think we should be questioning. Now, it's not that all of these channels and medias are bad, quite the opposite, but they can be not really focusing on enough of the good that the world needs. And if you think of all of the subjects that you can see there, so how informal economies work, fintech businesses, or fintech for good, certainly, crowd platforms, public policy and regulation, development finance, green bonds, impact investment, impact private equity, aid, all of these things are all ways to fund the global goals. But as you can see here, they're all quite siloed. They're in their own little bubbles. Now, the reality is there is some collaboration, there's some collaboration, but it's not anywhere near enough. And we believe the ability to join the dots and to put silos and confusion and to kind of to really connect the dots by using multi-format media platform, which is the model for fundingtheglobalgoals.tv, means that what we can do is create our own mini CNBC or Bloomberg, but for everything to do with funding the SDGs. And therefore, what we're doing is we're taking all those subjects and we're putting media-led system innovation right at the heart of it. That includes Clubhouse and YouTube and Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn, but many other platforms as well, depending on where we are in the world. Ultimately, it's designed to be a global strategy. And citizen journalists can play a big part of that. It's really designed to be a very intelligent platform. So there'll be regular news programs. There will be podcasts. So think of the Joe Rogan type experiences, but others, but focused on the issues of finance. And where what we can do is we can provide the marketing and the production capability to some of the best people that we already know, and giving them the ability and also paying them so that they can develop their own media presence, but without all the hassle. Interviews, in-depth interviews with, it can be with central bankers, it can be with prime ministers, it can be with innovators who are doing incredible system innovation in finance, policymakers. We can interview so many people and really dig beneath the surface of those innovations and showcase the kind of activity that often the very best they're going to get is a soundbite. What we want to do is show what the real potential is and follow those stories. And we can do that on this platform. So there'll also be events. We can film other events and host them, but we can also comment on events that have happened or that are coming and do so in a very innovative way. So we're in effect joining the dots on those events, giving people a one-stop shop so they can find their news, they can find sound bites from podcasts that we do, or the full podcasts, interviews, events. And of course, there's the website, and there'll be documentaries, and there'll be e-learning. And they're all part of this model to create a multi-format media platform that changes the rules of the game. So on a similar basis to Big Crowd, 125 million would be invested over the first 3 or 4 years, 5 million, then 20, then 100, as part of the model for the bank. Now, ultimately, we've got a number of choices of what's the revenue model for funding the globalgoals.tv. It could be that we have aligned sponsors that could be foundations or governments setting up new bureaus in other locations, or it could even be commercial partners that we sign up as overarching sponsors for the bank. And that's something that we don't talk about a lot, but it's part of the model. It's an adjunct, meaning the model doesn't rely on it. It's something that can be added that adds richness. And we can do that with corporations who want to do open innovation, want to shine a spotlight on what they're doing, but also want to have access to deal flow. And rather than just sponsor the media property, the model is that we would have a way of getting 30 or 40 of them to collectively sponsor everything that we're doing for the ability to participate in that open innovation program broadly around all of the sustainable development goals, with many other benefits that can come to them. So the options are really open, but also with an annualized budget, we think around about 40 million when it's getting to scale, without the worldwide presence and international bureaus, but a 40 million budget annually can do incredible things. And when you're doing it as part of the bank, we could do it out of our own marketing budgets that come from either Big Crowd or that come from the bank itself. So we could be the sole and permanent sponsor, or indeed we could have a mixed model. And that's still to be defined. Anyway, thank you for watching this presentation on the media and communication properties for our new World Bank, but better. Well, if you want to learn more, you can go onto the website, transformglobal.co, or there is a separate website for bigcrowd.net or fundingtheglobalgoals.tv. You can also find us and talk to us on my Clubhouse room, on LinkedIn, or any of the other platforms. And if this is of interest to you, if you think you can add value, it might be you want to partner, it might be you might want to be an employee or a team member, or indeed you might have a project that could feature on any one of the platforms, just get in touch. Now, of course, we've got to launch, we've got to raise our capital, we've got to get our teams operational first. So please bear with us if you have something that you would want to feature. But if you want to be involved with the project on any level, do be in touch, and you can do that through the form on the website. So thanks again, and do be sure also to take a look at the other presentations on this new World Bank, but better. Thank you.